7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, everybody, it's me, Amanda with DevExpress, and I am here with Don Wibier. Don, where are you at these
Hey,
days?
Amanda. Yeah, I'm very excited actually because after a long time I'm in the actual office of DevExpress again.
You're in the DevExpress offices. I'm not even in the
Ye-
DevExpress office.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there, but I mean, I traveled a decent amount to get here, but I'm super excited. Yeah, and it's
Awesome.
good to see a bunch of colleagues that I haven't seen from before that thing. What was it called? Pandemic?
The
That was the
pandemic?
last time I was here. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you traveled a long way. Um, but now we're just here on Twitch
Yeah.
together again. All right, Don. So what are we looking at this morning?
Yeah, well, let me start off with that. I will try to not get it as complex and complicated as I did in the last episode. I got a bit carried away about all the technical things, and yeah, I'm gonna start where we left off by finishing off a couple of things on the application. And once we have this, we can do some really cool stuff because we have laid down a cool foundation which is quite flexible. And yeah, you can do a whole bunch of things with that, and that will hopefully show you how you can create yeah enterprise applications with Blazor.
Awesome. So all of that technical stuff last week's gonna laid a foundation for you to do some cool stuff from here on out.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we have been talking about doing something mail merging. Well, we need data for that. I have been talking about maybe converting this Blazor server application into a WebAssembly version.
Mhm.
We can do that as well with the code that I've explained last week. So yeah, I think this is was one of the necessary bumps to get further and to show why I am totally excited about Blazor.
Perfect. All right, let's see it.
Yeah. So yeah, I already have the demo application that we where we left off here, and yeah, I guess one of the things that I did was to separate the data access, so the entity framework models, from the UI, and I've used a design pattern which is called DTO, that is data transfer objects. So that means that we have two different kind of objects to deal with the data. One is for the UI, and the other one is for entity framework in this case. So another thing that we need to do, that is what I showed. I think that I need to rebuild the application quickly and boot it up again. I think it somehow stopped. Let me see if that still works.
Let me see.
One of the things I mentioned as well was data validation. That's obviously very important when you deal with data. And I showed in the previous episode as well that it is not too difficult to set up the data grid to support editing, inserting, and deleting. But the validation that we used was a bit so-so because it would actually display information about the table name, the field names, and so on. And that is typical information that you don't want to show to your end user because
Right.
a potential hacker would be more than happy to get that information. So that is something that we talked about as well. So let me see if the application is already ready to do something. Yeah, so here it is. And yeah, one of the things that we did was we were able to edit this data, though the model that is used in this form is not necessarily the same model as I used in the entity framework setup. And for that, I have used AutoMapper to transform those objects. So if I switch back to the code, we'll see that I have created this custom store. That was a bit of a technical thing,
Right.
and that is able to pass in a customer model. And under the hood, I mean, the UI doesn't have any knowledge anymore about entity framework. That will be transformed into something that is stored in the database. There is one thing that I didn't finish off, and that is, for instance, validating. So if I would now go back to this and I would hit new, maybe you remembered it, but if I would hit save here, it would complain about the email address not being filled in. What's happening now is it will just go away and nothing happens. So we need to fix something for that. And that is, we need to check the result of this particular method. So let me quickly change that. I have to save a bit of time. I have put that code already uh, on my clipboard. So to make the code even smaller, I can do something like this. So I will check whether it is new. And this is going to be the customer store. And this as well. And this can go. And now we are fetching that result. And the result will contain a number of things here. And one of the things it will have is if there is an exception, the result has that exception. And we can now make it a bit nicer here because if I would change that server exception, we had the server error. If we would change this, instead of being a string, I will change that to a validation exception. And this is something that I talked about in the previous episode as well. I was going to use Fluent Validator for the validation because it allows us to do some more advanced stuff on validation.
Okay.
And this is going to be a nullable thing. I need to include, let me see. I need to include a namespace for that. So I will go and include it here. And now this will all work very nice. I can now put something in here. I need to change a couple of things because I did change the type of this.
And you're doing all this, Don, so that when that an error message will come up?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but this is we want because I know that the Fluent validation, it will have a collection of errors of all fields that fail. And that's why I want to have access to that validation exception object instead of just the text, so I can do some more with displaying that stuff. So instead, I could remove now the try except in this case, and remove this as well. And I will now use the result dot exception. This is one of the classes that I coded last week as well. I will show you in a minute what it was. And this will contain a validation exception, which is something that comes with Fluent Validator. So if I would go back to the result here, the result is in this particular class. So let me move up. This is the result that will be returned if we do like an update or a create or a delete and something fails for some reason. It will return this object, and this object will contain a property success. So if it is successful, it's all fine. But if there is an error, that will be put in this validation exception. And you will see in a minute how we can now do something with that.
Okay.
In this case, we do need to check if there is a success. So I have to change this to if result dot success, or if it's not successful, then we have to do something here. Let me surround this that it looks okay. So this is typically, so I have changed a couple of minor things here. The server error is now an object instead of a string. And I can do the same here as well. So let me do this as well. And here I will catch that result. And I can use the same code here as what I used here. So I will just pass that error right in here. I can remove these ones because we are dealing with this in a different way now. And the customer store is fine. All right, so I've made some minor modifications to the error handling. And before we can use this approach, there is something else that we need to change, and that is inside that layout item that would display the errors. And what we can do here is, let me change this because now I need to do it slightly different. I will use the I will put in this class that will have, which I will call the validation container. And we'll do some CSS a bit later to make it look pretty. And in this case, I can remove, let me first remove this one. I'll change this to the server error not being null. If it's null, there is no error. But if it is not null, then we need to do something with the server. What we need to do then is we can use an unordered list to display the following things here. And so here I will be looping through the server errored errors. And in this case, I will display the error message. So this is something which is a bit better as what we used to have. We had this single string that would hold a specific error. But now, because I changed this approach, we can go through all those errors that might occur because there might be more fields or constraints that are failing. And yeah, so with this in place, if we want to know what we did for the customer validation, in this particular case, I have set up a rule that there should be a last name, there should be an email address, which is not empty. And this is just something that comes with Fluent Validator. This is how you validate your input with certain rules. And you can even put in, I pasted this in already, you can even do like a custom validation. In this case, I will check whether that email address is already used or not.
Oh.
And this is something which is typically quite difficult to do with the standard model-based validation. And as you can see with the approach that we are now trying to do, yeah, you can actually check in the database whether that email address is already taken or not.
I hate when I get that response.
Yeah, and the cool thing is that you can actually now get that before going back to the database, etc. So let's let's see if this all builds and then have a quick run to see what these changes did. And I hope that you can now also see that we have everything very nicely organized. So if we want to have other validation logic in the customer functionality, this is the place to do it.
Okay.
Let me see. I think we were already back here. I was still busy working on things. Let me see. Well, it's taking a bit of time. Oh, it says it has succeeded. So let's, that was the other one. Let's see if it works as expected. Here we are. And here we are back on the customers. So if I would now hit new and I will hit save. Now,
Email
instead,
must not be empty. That's what we said.
exactly, but maybe you remember the previous one. It had like all the table and database information in there, and that is, yeah, this is a bit nicer, right?
Yeah, cleaner, less is more.
Exactly. And yeah, I mean, it seems like a lot of work, but it's only for the start because now things are getting better. There is one thing which is also that we didn't test. If I would, I pre-filled the last name, which is typically not really a good idea for customers. But if I now clean that one out, remember I put up a rule that it should not be empty.
Hmm.
If I hit save again, we'll see that we have this nice last name must not be empty, as well as the email must not be empty. So we have now yeah, we can now validate on a whole bunch of things.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's what I like to hear. But and if you now want to do like another validation rule based on this particular customer entity, I can just go back to this customer validator and I can add something else. I mean, I can say something like maybe I want to have that. Uh, I can put up another rule. Let's put up another field, the validation for another field. So rule 4. And again, this is well documented in the Fluent Validator package. So there is a ton of examples um, where you can go through. Yeah, but typically, this is how you would set up this validation. So now I could say the last name, or no, I wanted to do the first name. Let's do the first name. And now I can say, okay, unequal is I think another one, or let me see, not equal, I think it is. And now I can say it should not be equal to, let's say, my name. Right, so now I've set up another validation rule, in this case for first name. And if I would now run it again, you will see that I cannot add my own name. I have set the wrong start a project, which it tends to lose every now and then. And let's see if this one works. Sometimes it takes a bit of time before Visual Studio does its thing, but eventually we'll get there. Yeah, here we are. And it's already reloading. Well,
I'm
let's
just
do it
wondering if our in-office connection is not as good as your home connection.
again. Yeah.
How can
Well, I
that be
had a discussion
possible?
with Jeff. Yeah, I had a discussion with Jeff as well, and it appears that indeed, I mean, Jeff is sitting in the office next to me, monitoring everything, but it appears that the latency is a bit worse from here as when I am in Holland. But hey,
Well,
technology, I mean, what can you do with it?
nothing.
Yeah,
All right, what do
well,
we got?
if it works, it's great. But I mean, if it starts to stutter, it's a bit so. All right, so let's change the first name, and let's do this. And if I would now hit save, yeah, we'll see that the first name must not be
Must
equal to
not be
me.
equal to Don.
Yeah, how cool is that? There is, but for all of you looking, I do want to point out one little thing here because we have these error messages because that's what we did. But you will still have this green checkbox here and here as well while it's empty.
Mm.
You see that?
Why is it green check boxing the empty box?
Yeah, well, that's a very good one. um, the thing is that the bullets on the bottom, they are dealing with the entity framework models. So these are server-side validations. But typically these validations, they work um, with the model that is used on the UI. So that is front-end validation. So there is two types of validation here, server side, which is always necessary, and the front end, the UI validation is to improve the end user experience. And a lot of things can be checked because what happens is if I hit save here, that data will be sent back to the server. It will be validated over there, and then yeah, errors will be propagated back to the client. While these simple validation rules could be done on the UI as well without any server component being involved. Because I could check client side whether it's empty or not.
Hmm.
And that is something that we are not using right now. And that is something that we're going to fix as well. And then we are ready for some cooler stuff in our next episode. So let's see how we can fix this and do server side as well as client side validation. That's fortunately not too difficult. So for that we need to include an extra package in our application because the Blazor form handling deals with the attribute-based validation that is pretty much standard with .NET, but we now want to use the Fluent validator on the UI as well. So we need to add an additional package from yeah, one of my friends who is dealing a lot with Blazor as well, which is building his own component set, which is called Blazor. And
Laser?
he has a UI component that allows us to validate the UI as well. And it's quite simple to set that up. So for that, I will go to my application and I will add an extra package, which is called Blazor Fluent Validator. And you can find that on NuGet, but I will do it the quick way, and I will just insert it here. So with this in place, we need to, we can actually set it up quite fast. Let me see what we need to do for this. And let me go to the website of this component as well, so you see what it is about. So I would go to Blazor Fluent Validator. Oh. Then we enter the GitHub repository of Chris Sainty. Well, he is a speaker all over the world if it concerns Blazor. He has written a book as well, and very nice. He has written here how to set it up and how to start using this. So I would recommend going over this and read it by yourself. But the most important thing is that we will need to have this Fluent validation validator in place. Yeah, this is much like the validation summary that is standard with Blazor. But now we're going to add that in our application. So for that, I will switch over to the grid, the customer one here, and I will just put that in right here. Oh, the Fluent. I typically don't like this, so what we can do better is put this in the imports package, so it will look a bit cleaner. Oh, I should remove those.
Can I pop that
And
link in the chat
now,
box, by the way, Don? That GitHub.
oh yeah, the link for that
I popped
component,
it
you
in
mean, the
already.
package. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, excellent. So let's get this here, and now it will be resolved. And yeah, before we can use this, sorry, before we can use this now, and yeah, before we can use this, I have to do it slightly different because this is a different validation mechanism. I need to remove it from here because the grid obviously needs to invoke this when editing or updating or whatever. And for that, the grid has a particular section which is called custom validators. And we're going to put the component in here. And the reason that we're putting the component in here is because the grid can edit in various ways. The DevExpress Blazor grid is able to do it in a pop-up window that we have been using, but it can also be done by inline editing, and it can be done by without a pop-up, basically. So there are different modes of editing, and we want that validation to happen. So that is why the Blazor data grid has this custom validator section that allows us to do to use a different validator. So in this case, I will make a reference that was in the description as well on the GitHub page. So I will call this Fluent Validator. For that, I will need to put in a reference to that thing as well in my code. So let's do that here. And then the last thing that we need to do is because we are now going to deal with model so not entity framework validation. So remember that I put this validation logic, wait a sec, where was it? Here. This is based on our entity framework model. You see the
Right.
namespace where it's in?
Mm-hmm.
It's EF. So now we also want to validate on that other model that is used in the UI. And I created a model which is similar to the one in entity framework, but still it is separated from entity framework. So we need another validator for this model as well. So how can we do that? Well, that's typically the same. Let me start simple by just copying the other one over, but we'll change a couple of things here. So I'll copy this one and I will move that one over to here. But for this to work, I need to change that to the customer model. And because this is the customer model, it pretty much has the same properties. So we can now say, if I change the constructor as well, I mean, we can leave this all in place. I will remove this custom section for a while. Maybe we can get it to work as well. But let's first show that we can fix those checkboxes because that's a bit inconsistent with the validation logic. So in this case, I have created this customer model validator. And for that, we also need to register it. So yeah, we could do that by adding another register service class in this one as well. So let's do that. I will call that a register services. Hey, what's happened here? Let me make that a bit smaller here. Register services, yeah. For that, I will take this. Oh, I want to have the same stuff, obviously, the same approach as I used with the other assembly. That gives me, so I'll copy this over quickly, but then we can change a couple of things here. Needs to add some reference here. This we need. We don't need the connection string. And now customer model and customer model validator. So now I have this, why is this still not red? I think this should work. Let me quickly build it. So I like to use the same approach with all those assemblies, and I only need to call that register services once. Let me change this one as well. Yeah, so now we're all good to go. And now, like I did with the other one, I can just add this one as well to make sure that that model validator is registered as well. Services dot register model services like this. All right, so now I've set up a couple of things that we can use that model validation as well on the UI. And so the validation will happen twice, once on the client and once on the server. Let's see
Let's see.
how this runs. Yeah, this is always an exciting part. Um, Okay, well, let's go. So if I would now go to the grid, here we are. If I now hit
Okay.
new, let's change this to done. Hey,
Ah,
you see what's happening? I was just going through the next field, and now what we'll see is that there is some other stuff happening here. You see that?
mm-hmm.
So this is better, obviously. So this
Well, like you
allows
said,
us to
it's consistent.
validate. Sorry?
It's consistent with what the errors popping up.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, so this is typically how you can yeah, very nice separate the UI from the actual data. This is what the whole goal what I wanted to show, and how you can organize things in a way that you will keep the logic, yeah, which is for the UI separate from the logic that is for the database. And yeah, this gives us some nice validation. One of the things that we can do to round this up is we can put in a validation summary, and that is something which comes with the standard Blazor, as well as Razor Pages and MVC as well. So if I would go to the grid, no, to the customer, and I would just put in a validation summary, which is standard components. I can also go to that template because we don't get any descriptions now. So if I would now go to the validation here, I'll have a summary with the errors as well that are happening on the UI. So before anything is being sent back to the server. And I think with this in place, where is it? Here it is. We're gonna try it again. Yeah, it's ready.
Ugh.
Yeah, I think this has to do with the screen sharing and delay. The delay is considerable every now and then.
Yeah. I'm just saying, we never had this problem when you were home.
Very well. I'll be home next week, so everything will be rocking again. All right, so let's do it again. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna enter an invalid email address, and I hit save. And I still don't get that error. And why is that? I probably forgot to do something. I didn't read it. I didn't read the manual properly. I have to do something. I'm back at the Fluent validation from the
Okay,
components that we used that you pasted in.
so you're trying to get it to do the
Yeah, I
arrow
want to.
in the box, but also at the bottom, both things.
Yeah, because it is giving me the indicators.
Okay.
And it does give me this tooltip, but I'd like to have it on the bottom as well, so I can, because now I have to go through all of these, and oh, it cannot be equal to done, you know,
Nothing's equal
and
to
it must not.
done.
Yeah, so I would like to have that on the bottom as well, and I am pretty sure that I forgot to configure something, I guess, because with most components you need to register something. But in this case, it didn't. Hey, I think I haven't moved too much. I have to touch my light. Wait a sec.
Oh no. Technical difficulties. Oh, Don, you look
Yeah, we've got this smart office that if you don't work too hard, the lights go out.
you know what though? It was kind of cool because it was very like 80s.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
yeah, you went real pixelated and like your head was like vibrating. It was weird.
I can turn it off again if it's better.
Definitely added
Uh,
another layer.
yeah. Okay, well, maybe we'll do it on the next one. Uh, I'm not quite sure why it doesn't display this thing actually. It should show. Maybe the build wasn't correctly. Let me quickly build the application again. Maybe it's strange. It should display the summary as well. Or maybe I should remove this one. This is probably it. Oh yeah, of course, this is it because the server error is only for the server errors and this was a UI error. So this trick won't work. This is why it was not displaying
Aha.
it. Yeah. So let's do the final build and see that we're able to have the same sort of validation and the same as well. So here we are again. Let's refresh. And going back to the grid.
Okay.
Yeah, because the application stopped, it first needs to boot up a couple of things here and there, but well, that's all been done. And hey, there is an error. And that is completely true because I was too quickly removing stuff. I exactly know what's going wrong here. I could actually show it here as well because this is something which is for most people doing Blazor a bit of a thing.
This
If
unhandled
I would
exception.
check, no, yeah, it is an unhandled exception. That's completely right. But if we see here, there is a system null reference exception. And if I check that out, I can exactly show you where this is. This is because I removed the check. Where is my little application here? That server error, in this case, this code will be executed now, but the server error is null in this instance because, yeah, there is no error yet. So we have to do an additional check here if server error uh, unequals null. We have to check. And because I removed the visible property, that check was performed over there. So this
Right.
code would not be executed. So last run. And let's see if it has already successfully built. Yep. Reload. Oh, I can close a couple of instances as well. Now the error has disappeared.
Okay.
And if I would now hit new, I can change this.
Uh-huh.
Now we're doing business,
Now we're
right?
cooking.
Yeah. So yeah, so this was actually the last bit that I wanted to do with setting up this generic approach for data access. And because we have this approach, we can actually minimize code even more in that grid, in that customer page. But we can talk about that in the upcoming episode, or maybe we can do some other stuff as well. First, Amanda, I'm not sure if you got any questions. Amanda, so this is what I wanted to show.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, let's so what do you so where so tomorrow when we come back tomorrow,
Yeah.
where are we headed next?
We can do a couple of things, and I'm quite flexible in what you think is interesting, what people think is interesting. One of the things what we can do is because still, if we take a look at the code here, um, there is a bit of code involved for this customer, but we have a fully functional customer maintenance screen that allows us to do validation. It looks good. It works fine. But if you have to do this for 200 entities in your database, it is still a considerable amount of work.
Hmm.
So one of the things we could do with the approach that we have right now is I can create a custom control that incorporates this data grid and all this extra code and use that as a foundation for the UI. And then you'll see that you only need to use that custom control. You define the columns that you want to display, the entity that you work with, and you'll even have less code in here. Or we can talk about the rich editor doing mail merging. We can use the same technology that we've set up now for the mail merging. I mean, I'm you can
Well, we
pick
can
and
do it
choose.
all. We can do it all
Yeah,
eventually.
eventually, yeah.
All right. So we will be back live tomorrow. We're just
Yeah,
taking advantage of Don being in the US and on the same time
absolutely. Oh
zone.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And yeah, how's that jet lag treating you?
I left it at house. I left it at home, so no, that will probably kick in anywhere later this day.
Night, night.
Yeah, thank you.
Your light just turns off in that office again, and
You just saw it happen. It went off. That was the jet lag indicator, and
yeah, I was
well,
like,
it's
go to
now.
bed, Don.
Yeah.
It's time for
Well,
night
I
night.
had a very cool night walk in Glendale here because I woke up at like 4 a.m. and I was like fresh as a newborn baby. Like, what shall we do? And I came outside and it was completely dark. There was nobody there. I took a stroll
Yeah,
and
was
went back.
anything open?
No,
No.
nothing.
Yeah.
Ex- Completely nothing. No, there were a couple of shops preparing already, but it was dark and it was lonely. But I mean, I had my exercise.
That's like the beginning of like a musical. It was dark and it was lonely.
Yeah.
Just me on the streets of Glendale.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
wow.
I
All
wasn't
right.
singing
Well,
though, but
all right. So we will be back tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I did post in the chat, but if you're enjoying the stream, don't forget to follow and turn on notifications so you get notified when we go live. And that's it for this one. Thanks, Don. See you tomorrow.
cue and till tomorrow.
Okay. Bye.